This is Capital Games. I'm the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. Today is a light news day, but I'm going to let you lead on with a story that you found compelling and that you think might be worth discussion today. So why don't you go right ahead and lead right on?
Yesterday, Reggie Fils-Aime, or the Reginator as he was once known, posted an interesting piece of commentary about just the state of VR games and everything, especially since there have been a lot of articles that have been coming out with PSVR 2 and Meta supposedly possibly prepping to get ready for the next iteration of the Quest headset and everything. And some of the commentary has been, VR is the future, VR is the future is now, and all this sort of stuff. But he posits a counterpoint that right now just VR is just a little too niche to really get a mainstream following, and he feels that due to the numbers, he feels that it will always be relegated to being a niche thing until VR can come up with that one killer game that everyone just simply must play right now. And he posted a graphic on his Twitter account, and it shows a percentage of video games and virtual reality, or user penetration rates of video games and virtual reality hardware. Mm-hmm. And on the video game side, he's got percentages of it starts off in 2020 with 42.3%, and then when you get to the predictions of 2027, the estimate is that the penetration percentage is probably going to sit right around 51.3%. And then compare that to VR video games, or excuse me, VR hardware. The penetration of the hardware for VR is quite low. In 2020, the penetration percentage of VR hardware is 0.4%, and then if things continue on the current trends, then the expectation is by 2027, VR hardware will only penetrate maybe 1.7% of the gaming populace. I thought it was just kind of interesting, again, mostly with relevance to PSVR 2 coming out recently, and also just how there's been a lot of chatter from some gaming pundits that VR gaming is somehow the future and everything. Mm-hmm. Which again, I'm not one to just kind of piss on VR at all. I think VR is cool, but I think it's a little bit premature to try to claim that VR is the future of gaming right now, because it's just kind of niche because of the circumstances of the hardware. Mainly, in my opinion, just the hardware is a bit pricey right now, and unfortunately, the Quest headsets were a great point of getting people in on the cheap at the original price of $300. But now with the Quest 2 headsets being priced up to $400, it's not quite as affordable as it used to be.
I'm looking at the thing that Reggie Fils-Aime did from Statista right now, and it is interesting, but it's fair to note that this is speculative, because it shows everything from 2020 to the what is believed to be the case in 2027, if the market holds up in this case. There's reasons to think it will, but on the other hand, I mean, you're looking at 2020 being the year of the pandemic, where a lot of people bought game systems to keep themselves entertained. Those people are not there, so and that also shows up in 2021, where it went up and then went down penetration-wise by it looks like 3 percentage points in 2022. For some reason, I don't see the penetration being as high as this metric says, but I believe that it has 51% of the populace being in gaming with consoles or physical, digital, or streaming by 2027. I don't see that. I would say more along the lines of 48, 49%, maybe, if things go on the upswing with that, and people aren't as cash strapped, or they see or they feel like they're still getting the value in gaming that they still believe it to be. There is a possibility that the industry might price itself out. So That's the thing with VR. VR has been incredibly niche since its inception. It was niche at first because it was expensive. I think the first Oculus Rift was about $1,000, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So only people who could spend the extra cash to get it got into it at first. And even with that as well, you're asking people to buy hardware on a whole brand new system and have to buy games for that as well, not knowing the quality of it. Here's the thing that video games have that VR just doesn't have right now in this, and that is the show me quality. And what I mean by that is when you are playing a game and you want your friend who doesn't play games to see what you're playing, you can show them what you're playing. You can say, oh, check out Call of Duty, check out this mode where I'm shooting all these people, or check out this story sequence. Oh, isn't it crazy? Oh, yeah, that's awesome, dude. Oh my god, video games are like this now? You can't do that with VR. I mean, unless you have a pass-through, but then the person that is watching it is going to see a weird, distorted version of what you're seeing. So there's not really a thing with VR that can get other people to try it unless they put on the goggles and put on the wands and try it themselves, which I think is also a big barrier for a bunch of reasons.
With regards to your mention of a pass-through, I know both PSVR 1 and PSVR 2, they do have sort of a pass-through mode because it's the PS5s and respectively PS4 are connected to your TV. Again, it's like you said, just even with the pass-through, your friend is probably going to look at it and go, okay, well, I guess that's neat, but I'm not going to really understand what the hell you're doing until, I put on the headset. And even then, just the headset has its own hurdles too. I mean, motion sickness is a thing because some people get very nauseous with VR headsets, unfortunately. And that's kind of the nature of VR sometimes. Just there are physical barriers as well too. It's not quite as easy as it seems.
Right, and then there's also the way of the headset. Maybe it's too heavy for people to be comfortable with it. It might hurt their neck. On top of that, there is the vision problem. If you have bad vision and you're wearing goggles, you might have to have a special insert in order to actually wear that, which might make it a little more uncomfortable because now there's more weight putting on the bridge of your nose while you're wearing the glasses that you have to wear in order to wear the goggles. That's another issue. I think the bigger issue really is when you're showing somebody you playing VR, what are they going to pay attention to most? Are they going to pay attention to the screen if you have a pass-through? Or are they going to look at you playing it? Because I got to tell you, I've seen my nephew play VR games on his Oculus, or I guess his Meta Quest. I can't stand that name. But on his Quest, and he looks like an absolute goofball playing it. Like where he's like looking up in the air with the goggles, ooh, and then swatting. Like if it makes you look goofy, people who are self-conscious about their image and how they look, which is most people, are gonna opt out and go, nah, I'll pass. That looks a little too goofy for my taste, thank you. But if you have like a controller that you can just tell people, just press this button, and that's all you gotta do, you're good. Then you have, that's the only barrier, is hand them the controller and watch. That's all you gotta do. With the VR, there's the headset, there's the wands, there's the physicality, there is the way you look, the way you act, and stuff like that. And it is an impediment, and it's a barrier to a lot of people, I think, at least.
I have to agree with you on the point of shame being quite the motivator, because yeah, I can definitely see some people going, hey man, that looks cool, but I don't want to look goofy as shit like that. Hell no.
What was the first image that we saw of VR in the mainstream press? Do you remember the very first image that we saw that where VR was coming into its own, where it could be a viable business? Do you remember this image?
I think so. I think it was kind of like a guy that was kind of like had the goggles and the wands in his hands and just was kind of looking upwards, and it just looked goofy as shit. Yeah. At least that's one of the first ones that I remembered. It's
the Time magazine cover of Palmer Luckey, and it's him in goggles and a headset looking in this, like looking at the sky with this goofy little like tiptoe kind of pose that he has. And that was a thing that I think a lot of people noticed at the time. It wasn't, oh my god, virtual reality. It was, that guy looks goofy as shit. He looks ridiculous. And that enough is to get a lot of people to be like, I don't think so. Like, I can do without, thank you. There is a lot of things with VR in order to gain penetration at all. Let's even say maybe not just the amount where gaming is. Let's just say 10%. 10% of penetration in the population. What do you think that they have to do in order to do that? I think, first off, you have to make sure it's really comfortable to watch it, to experience it. You then also have to make sure no one can get sick. Because I hate to say this, you can say, only certain people get motion sickness. As soon as you say someone can get sick doing something, a lot of people bow out and say, not for me, thank you. No, Even though you can get motion sickness watching a movie or playing a video game, as soon as someone can say, X thing can do this to me, forget it. I'm not doing that. So you have to solve those problems on top of that as well. What other things do you think that they have to solve?
I think the point of the killer app or the must-play experience that Reggie alludes to is definitely an important factor, because right now, you've got some games that are interesting, and I know that there's some PC VR enthusiasts that'll say, well, there is a must-play experience. It's Half-Life Alyx, but they fail to realize the problem. To get outfitted to even be able to play Half-Life Alyx, you need a PC that's decently capable of even doing VR. And with the current market pricing on such a PC, you're looking at easily $2,000 maybe at minimum, and that's with getting something like a 4080 or 4090 if you're on Team Green, and then maybe a 7900 XTX if you're on Team Red. And those graphic cards are right around $1,000, or in Team Green's case, a little over $1,000 for the graphic card itself, and then the rest of the components probably right around another $1,000. And that's problem number one. Problem number two, the Valve Index kit is right about another $1,000. So $3,000 for like minimum barrier of entry. Yeah, sure, you get Half-Life Alyx for free, but $3,000 to get into the must-play experience. That's not going to be something that people are going to be willing to just kind of drop on a whim just to say, okay, this is the must-play thing. Sure, let me scrounge up $3,000 to go play this experience. Then when you scale it down to like the Oculus Quest 2 and stuff like that, the Oculus Quest 2, it's powered by, I believe, a mobile phone chipset and everything. So you're not talking about like high fidelity gaming at like 4K or anything like that. Even still, a lot of the games on the Oculus Quest 2, there hasn't been anything on the Quest that has been like a must play that, people are going out of their way to fight for the headset at the store for right now. So even on the low end, there's not really a compelling must-play experience. So yeah, it's kind of like a problem that they're split on both ends, both on the top end and at the low end.
And isn't it true that you also have to have pods set up in order to use the HTC Vive, or it's the Valve Index, right?
Yeah, so the Valve Index, there are two spatial sensors that you mount in your room. They're battery powered, but they essentially map out the entirety of the play space. And it syncs up with the headset so you don't bump into your furniture like a table or a lamp or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in that instance, I mean, it's cool, but again, just there's also sort of a barrier of having to install these things onto your walls and stuff like that. And I mean, maybe you're in an apartment complex that is really stingy about like damaging your walls and stuff like that. I mean, the Index may not be an option for you.
I think the other thing as well is just not only just the killer app. This is new technology. You have to provide something that essentially says you're getting a different type of experience when using this technology. And all I've seen right now are games that I think could be made to be non-VR. I mean, Half-Life Alyx, that could be non-VR, correct? All you would have to do, instead of having you physically scrounge things to find bullets, all you gotta do is, in a non-VR setting, press X to get bullet, and then you have the same thing. What I'm reminded of is Wii Sports. Wii Sports could not be done on any other game. I don't think it could have, the way it was designed, at least. It wouldn't have been a captivating game to play without the way the controls were, in that sense. Is there really a game that you can play on VR that, if without smart game design, could not have worked on non-VR platforms? I think that's the question. Like, if you can't provide that, because I look at Half-Life Alyx and go, yeah, I can play a million first-person shooters. Why would I want to spend $1,000 to play this one first-person shooter? Really, why? That's my thing, at least.
The smart game design, I think, also goes into the killer app discussion as well too, because like the example that you mentioned with Wii Sports, that was just a combination of both intelligent design and just the Wiimote's technology just being put together in almost perfect symphony and everything. VR, I mean, there hasn't really been anything that has been, I guess, revolutionary in that same way. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, you've got stuff like Vacation Simulator where, you know, you're using the VR wands to pick things up and whatnots. And I mean, yeah, that's cool. But in a sense, like you said, you could still easily kind of convert that into just like a regular non-VR type game if you rejigger some things here and there.
Right.
And unfortunately, just VR doesn't have anything that just really gets into the weeds on just showing off what VR can do better than just regular controller-based gaming can do. This is not me disparaging on VR. If there's anyone listening who says, "Oh, this guy's saying VR sucks," no, definitely not the case. But I think it's still a case to be said that VR needs to have something that just has some absolute wow factor that gets people going, holy crap, the only way to play this is in VR. There is no absolute way you could convert this into like just a regular console experience. And I have to bear the minor embarrassment of playing this VR game because it's just that good. Okay, sure, why not? I'm sure when Wii Sports came out, there are probably people who are skeptical on that and like, oh god, I'm going to be waving my controller like an idiot in front of my TV. No thanks. When it was just kind of shown off on just, you know, how neat it seemed, probably you had people going, okay, I guess I can spare myself the embarrassment, give it a try out, and then go, oh my god, this is actually kind of fun.
Right, but with Wii and Wii Sports, what they had was that instant tangibility. You are not only seeing what the person is doing and watching them, it shows up on screen. And that essential one-to-one, where you can see that the swing of the bat or the swing of the remote made the other person on screen swing in time with you, well, supposedly, of course, that turned into an interesting dynamic where people are like, oh my god, that's amazing. Like, that made certain games better to play on the Wii at the time. Like, that's just what it was. It was an experience you couldn't have. That is not the case with VR. You're having, I think with VR, it's more or less do you want a more dynamic version of what you're getting? Do you want a more enveloped version? Do you want a more detail-oriented version of what you want, what you already have? And honestly, for most people, the answer is no. They just want to be comfortable and happy with where they are. You would have to give them the reason to want to dive into that system. And until you find that one thing that they don't have yet that they will want, you're going to continue to be niche. It's only going to be those people who, I would say like me and you, who want a little bit more with their gaming and have the money to spend, of course. But that want a little more with their gaming. Those are the people that are going to end up getting VR. It's not going to penetrate wildly and have a big amount of people playing this at all. I don't think, at least. I think until that time, this is how it will be. It basically needs to be financed by other companies that have more successful products. And when that's the case, you have something that will forever be niche, because no company in their right mind is going to put millions upon millions of dollars into this kind of thing unless it's a side project for something much bigger.
I know some people have mused and speculated on the sidelines, going, "Oh yeah, just wait and watch. The minute that Nintendo gets into the VR game, it's going to be a sure thing." And I kind of counterposit with the idea of maybe the reason Nintendo hasn't really gone deep into the VR space is because they too have the same concerns of they want to ensure that they can create a tangible experience that can be shared, and it ends up getting others into that experience. And just right now with the current technologies, they don't feel that they can do that with VR.
All right, well, that does it with this segment of Capital Games. Friday is the weekly dividend, so check that out. Unless a big news topic comes out on Thursday, that'll be probably the next time you'll hear from us. But until then, that is it for Capital Games for this segment. I am the Wiz.
I'm Zero.
And we'll talk to you next time. Bye.